It's May 2nd, approximately 7 p.m., 2024, and I'm with John Jekovich and Claire, and we're going over his book. We're on page 322, Passwords, Kia, and Hospital Bound.
So what?
Passwords, Kia, and Hospital Bound.
Hospital bound.
Hospital Bound. Hospital Bound. Within minutes, 17 Germans roared into the view, racing down to fill in the engage with the enemy tanks. Close behind were 10 or more of our Shermans. We could hear the Mark IVs blazing away with their 88s, and over the din, we also heard the sharp snap of a snubby-nosed 75s on the intrepid, dauntless little Shermans. Overhead, P-38 Lightning and P-51 Mustang were picking off the Mark IVs as they scattered to get out of the deadly fire. What was a P-38 Lightning?
What was a P-38 Lightning?
Oh yeah?
What was a P-38 Lightning?
Fighter pilot. Fighter plane.
American?
Yeah.
Okay. What was a P-51 Mustang?
P-51 Mustang fighter.
American?
It's American.
What's the major difference between a P-38 Lightning and a P-51 Mustang? Was there much of a difference?
51 was faster, had more guns on it. And
Okay.
same thing, one pilot, that's all.
Okay. We're picking off the Mark IVs, so they're pretty effective against the Mark IV tanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
What, the plane?
The P-38s and the P-51s, are they effective about hitting the Mark IVs?
Tank?
Yeah.
Well, it all depends what shell they're using.
As they scattered to get out of their deadly fire, we were told to hold our position and watch for the German stragglers or even Americans wandering about. We saw nothing moving but crouched down in the snow in the anticipation something happening. It was dark now, and we could see the flames flickering all around from the burned out tanks and vehicles. Our main concern now was the enemy was infiltrating our lines and getting past us or gunning us down. I strung out the squad in a frontal line and told them to dig in as best as they could. Nobody sleeps tonight. I warned them, unless you want to sleep forever. Did you mean by telling them that no one sleeps tonight? I checked the new replacements. They were jumping and visibly disturbed by the whole chain of events. I got Lester to stay with them to bolster their security and confidence, while showing them how to dig a slit trench in a frozen ground, an impossible task.
Hey John, how do you dig a slit trench?
Yeah, how do you build a slit trench? Slit trench. How would you build a slit trench? Slit trench. How would you build one?
How would you dig a slit trench?
I know what you're saying.
Slit, S-L-I-T?
Trench.
Trench.
Slit trench.
How do you build one?
You dig a hole horizontally
And
and just lay in it.
Okay.
It's below ground level. Slit trench, yeah.
But isn't it very difficult with the frozen ground?
Well, yeah. That's always a problem. That's always a problem.
That's a big problem. That was a problem with everybody, right?
Everybody had a hard time digging those trenches. It was hard.
Well, if it was that hard, they weren't fooling around with it. They were looking for trees, build a shelter now.
Okay.
Using the trees instead of the stupid.
Okay. I checked the new replacements. They were jumping and physically disturbed by the whole change of events. I got Lester to stay with them to bolster their security and confidence, while showing them how to dig a slit trench in a frozen ground, an impossible task. Lape was on the gun while I went out to check our flanks. Walking about 100 yards to our right, I came upon a platoon of riflemen dug in with a couple of BARs and light machine guns, along with a good supply of bazookas.
What's a BAR?
What's a BAR?
It's a machine gun.
Machine. Is that a heavy machine gun?
Browning automatic rifle.
Browning automatic rifle, I'll be damned. So Brownie was a big maker of weapons during World War II.
Oh yeah.
And Brownie's still top of the line in a weapon today. I'll be damned.
They sell all over the world.
I'll be damned. I told them our position and acknowledged that they knew we were there. They had seen the firing we had done on the German command cars. I walked back to the gun, looked around, and told Lape I was going to check out the other flank. As I walking for 50 or so yards, I came upon an anti-tank platoon dug in with their 57s and 75 millimeter assault guns. I told them we were glad that they were around, as I believe there were some German tanks in the vicinity. They said they heard also that they're ready for them. As I got back to the gun to settle down to another restless and anxious long night, I thought about the new replacements and how they must feel their first night in combat. The nights were the worst as far as I was concerned. I dreaded the coming because it was winter, the daylight hours were the shortest of the year. The nights would drag on and it seemed that they would never end. It was the time the enemy would be probing our position and attempting to sneak up and destroy us. We were tired, hungry, and cold, and very vulnerable to their antics, especially with new, inexperienced troops around. The hazards increased tremendously. I would be willing to wager that I had not had a full night's sleep since entering combat, as most of the rest of the soldiers would attest to.
Yeah. Why does other guy die? Why does other guy not get affected? The other soldier.
What's that?
Huh?
No one got much sleep.
Huh?
You said no one got much sleep, right?
No.
Okay. All right. The bringing of each other new dawn came a great sense of exhilaration and relief that you had successfully come to another night unscathed. I closed my eyes, weary from lack of sleep and the coldness slowing the energy from my body. Lape was to wake in an hour, and I would relieve him. I had just started to nod off to sleep when I heard a rumble of tanks. Damn it, I exclaimed under my breath as I jumped up to see if I could detect for their movement. Suddenly, there were two Mark V Panzers. They must have broken out of the encirclement. They were to our left and heading straight for us. Anti-tank platoon dug in. I motioned for everybody to stay down and not fire. A .30 caliber would not do much to a Panzer, but infuriate him, and he would start firing his 88s at us. The anti-tank platoon waited until they got fairly close. Then they opened fire. The 3-inch shells were bouncing off the Panzers like so many ping-pong balls, and the Panzers started to fire. They destroyed several of our anti-tank guns, and the remaining guns continued to fire at the approaching tanks. A rifleman with a bazooka put one of the Panzers out of commission, and he was on fire. The other tanker kept on coming at full speed, figuring he would overrun our position and escape. Another bazooka shell fired it, missed the tank completely. By now the Panzer had cleared the anti-tank position and was clear out of range of the bazookas, heading over open field in a southerly direction. That morning we heard over half of the anti-tank battalions were casualty and most of their self-propelled guns were destroyed. The Shermans had bottled up Panzer's regiment and had captured over 200 Germans and their equipment. We had not suffered any casualties ourselves, but managed to frighten the hell out of our new replacements to give them a taste of what combat was all about.
Wow, that must have been very, very scary. Right, John?
No.
Yeah?
By this time, American and British units had developed a closely coordinated pattern of maneuver By this time, American and British units had developed a closely coordinated pattern of maneuver to engulf the fleeing Panzer units. Mortars and artillery had flushed them out, and the tanks and the tank destroyers would move in and gather them up. The infantry would use rockets from the anti-tank bazookas or drop Fury white phosphorus grenades down the ventilator shafts of the tanks. How many ventilator shafts did each tank have?
5 or 6.
Weren't those made the tank extremely vulnerable?
Oh, yeah. Well, they could put a lid on them.
Oh, they did? Was that so the tank operator could breathe?
But, say again?
Was that so the tank operator could breathe? Was that as fresh air?
What?
The shaft.
Well, they were in an enclosed area. They were getting the gas tubes.
Okay, so they needed those vents.
Yeah.
Wow. The Germans were constantly probing our fluid lines, and whenever they found a hole, it took advantage of it. Several times the weather was clear for our fighters to spot them, and they would annihilate them with rockets and machine gun fire. There was also liaison of L4s hovering over our position. Now, what was an L4?
Outdoor.
L4. A plane, L4. What was that?
L4. That was a reconnaissance plane.
Oh, okay. Were they a big target?
Huh?
Were they always a target? L4s were a big target of the enemy?
No, they're a little Piper Cub.
Hovering over our position, directly artillery and spotting runaway tanks. At times, the Germans would mount a counterattack, supported by tanks and assault guns. Fatigued and sometimes outnumbered, our infantry would fall back and regroup. At times, a coordinated thrust by several rifle companies supporting the tanks would tilt the scale in our favor, and we would hold certain stand by. Stand by. We'd hold certain a piece of ground for a time. During these periods, we would position into a supporting role, aiding the riflemen in reaching their objective, or at least holding on to it. In other instances, several rifle companies would be so depleted that they could compromise at most a reinforced platoon. At least a company would be down to 60 men and another to 80, far from the strength of a normal rifle company. What's a normal rifle company? How many?
130.
Wow, these guys were in half.
Yeah.
Half. 130. Our own squad was under strength by 4 men. Most of the time, it was seldom that we operated at full strength for long. The Germans refused to surrender even after they were devastated with high explosive charges in their bunkers. So the Germans have many times refused to surrender?
No, because that's their homeland.
Finally, a tank dozer and tank equipped with a bulldozer blade was summoned, and it would cover the entrance and firing.
And he'd bury them.
What's that?
He'd bury them.
Sealing it in and burying their men inside alive.
Yeah.
So explain to me how this works. I don't fully understand it. How would this work?
What?
The Americans would come with a tank, with a big bulldozer shovel on the front,
Yeah.
and take the German tanks and just bury them?
take the ground just like they're plowing.
Just like they're plowing, and the Germans wouldn't get out?
They would, certainly they got out if they could get out.
But did some not get out?
Well, every time they moved, they got shot.
Oh, wow.
That was hit and miss, hit and miss, hit and miss.
Wow. Finally, a tank equipped with a bulldozer blade was summoned, and it covered the entrance and firing with the earth, sealing in and burying the men inside alive. At another time, the 2 battalions attacked the plan with the purpose of flushing out the entrenched Germans to an isolated villages. Reaching the villages necessitated moving through the forest in waist-deep snow. I was carrying the tripod, and Lester had the receiver. Lape had gotten some of the antifreeze from the receiver on his hands and had a mild case of frostbite. So if you got that antifreeze on your hand, you would get a mild case of frostbite?
Well, if you're in there long enough, yeah.
His hands were too sensitive to carry anything, not even several ammo boxes. It was just as well. I'd rather have Lester doing these times, as he seemed more aware of what was going on around him, plus the fact that he would not gripe as did Lape. So Lape griped a lot?
Slept?
Lape, did he complain a lot?
Well, he didn't want to be there. He didn't want to be there. He's not in there.
And what finally happened to Lape?
Finally?
What?
He got killed.
Uh-huh. Is this shortly after I'm reading this?
Yeah,
It's close to this time.
broke his neck.
But his demise is coming shortly where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that perfectly well. We had as much trouble with these dense woods, steep slopes, and high snow as we had with the enemy. By nightfall of the first day, we came upon a network of trails leading to 2 villages. One of the rifle companies sent out a reconnaissance patrol to determine the strength and position of the Germans occupying the villages. In the meantime, we set up a defensive position but did not bother to dig in, as the ground was frozen to a depth of over a foot. So you mean to tell me the ground was frozen over a foot deep?
Oh, yeah. That was a heavy frost, heavy freeze. You're talking January and February.
That's really amazing. I wonder if they're having those same temperatures now,
Oh, yeah.
80 years later.
Yeah.
I'll have to research that. They probably are. A foot deep. Wow. Besides, we would not want to be here long. We were all chilled from trudging through the deep snow, and I was soaked from sweating. As we crouched there, waiting for the patrol to return, I could feel that the back of my wool shirt was soaked. We had a change of our clothes, and we're all getting colder by the minute. The patrol returned. Active still? The patrol returned and reported a heavy concentration of Germans in one of the villages, but no tanks were sighted. The artillery was alerted. Shortly thereafter, shells from the 105s and the 155s whistling overhead, saturating a little village. After they lifted the barrage, we would move in cautiously, anticipating any moment the Germans in the village would open up on us with their burp guns and mortars. Were burp guns very effective?
Sorry?
Were burp guns very effective?
Both what?
Burp guns, were they very effective for the Germans?
What kind of a gun?
B-U-R-P, burp guns.
Burp
guns.
Burp gun.
Yeah.
They were rapid fire machine guns.
Were they very effective?
Handheld.
Were they very effective?
Yeah, they weren't very accurate though.
What millimeter shell do they generally use?
Who?
The burp gun, what millimeter shell? Were there 9 millimeters?
Well,
The burp guns. What type
9
of ammo?
millimeter? No, smaller than that.
Small, not.
It was on a belt.
And did all Germans have a burp gun?
Oh, yeah.
That was kind of like the Americans 45.
Yeah, they go burp, burp, burp.
Did they kill a lot of Americans with those burp guns?
Now?
No, did they then kill a lot of Americans with those burp
Oh, yeah.
That's-
Rapid fire, it wasn't very accurate, sprayed it all over.
And how about their mortars? Were their mortars very dangerous?
81s or 60s.
Either one.
81s were more accurate.
But most of their weapons weren't that accurate.
Mortars were. Artillery was.
Yeah. As we advanced, we're getting closer to some of the houses in the villages, and everyone expected to see a burp gun blasting away from one of the broken windows. So as you're getting closer to the village, I'm trying to visualize that you're getting closer to this.
Snipers were up at the second floor.
So as you're coming through the villages, you're expecting at any minute from a broken second story window
Yeah.
that burp guns would be firing at everybody.
Yeah.
And then how would you react to that?
Well, you get behind them.
Did you fire back at the windows?
Well, you tell the artillery zero on that building, and they
And that
don't.
was it.
That's why I say never go in the building.
How far away was the artillery that was zeroing in on it?
That what?
The artillery that would hit the buildings.
Hit that building, probably half a mile.
Okay, so you guys would tell the artillery what to zero in on.
Yeah.
And
They
then,
give them azimuth readings on a map, and they zero in on it.
and so when the artillery would hit that house, did it completely annihilate the house?
Well, depending what was in the house, there might have been a lot of ammunition in the house.
All right, but it
And they
generally,
might have had gasoline in there stored up or something.
killed the enemy.
Yeah.
Or did the enemy come running out?
Right.
When the artillery hit the house, did it generally kill the enemy in the house, or did the enemy come running out?
Coming out?
Did the enemy come running out when the artillery hit it, the house?
Oh, yeah. Well, they don't want to stay there. That's why I say don't stay in the house.
You told all the guys never to stay in the house.
Yeah, never stay in the house.
Wow.
They'll zero it out every time.
Wow. No sooner than they moved out, the machine gun had opened up and they were caught in crossfire. Up ahead, the lead scouted a single caution. Almost immediately, a German machine gun opened fire, and it caught me by surprise. As I hugged the frozen ground, I waited for the next burst to see if I could locate him. I was ready for the second burst, and I spotted his position. He was in a clump of felled trees, almost in a clearing. I could see him distinctly now. He fired another burst, and then another, and I wondered what he was firing at so profusely. All the while, he was giving away his position. So, as they're giving away their position, it's mostly done by the enemy in the woods shooting off their guns, and you just kind of be observant where the shells are coming from, and then you shoot that location.
Yeah. Well, they zero out where the location is, and they call the artillery gun.
So, and that's the reason why you're using the heavy machine guns, that you would shoot a couple hundred rounds, and you'd hightail it to
heavy
another.
machine gun was a pain.
You'd
in the ass,
hightail it to
yeah.
another location.
And you could do just as much for the light machine gun.
You would move real quick, though, right?
Yeah. A heavy weapon, you had that water tank on there.
Yeah. Okay. He was in a clump of felled trees, and I wondered why he was firing so profusely, as all the while giving his position away. One of the rifle squads was deployed to attempt to flank his position. No sooner had they moved out than another machine gun had opened up, and we were caught in crossfire. The company commander was killed, attempting to extricate his men, as were a good portion of his platoon. We would fire at the one machine gun position, clear our position, find another so as not to get zeroed in on. That's exactly what you're talking about, not to get zeroed in on, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Keep moving with the name of the game. Keep moving was the name of the game, so you're always on your go.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Lester was getting used to the gun and was getting fairly accurate in its firing. I kept urging him to fire short bursts to conserve ammo, and he would comply most of the time. The remaining riflemen were attempting to flank the machine gun position, and we were told to hold our fire. The German gunners were not of a flanking movement and kept firing at anything that moved. The riflemen got with a bazooka range and fired several rockets, hitting the one gun emplacement. The other gun ceased firing, and the crew crawled out the bunker with their hands held high, shouting, "Comrade, comrade." The lead scouts were in the village and reported light enemy resistance. By then, a platoon of Shermans were entering the village from the opposite direction, taking advantage of the frozen ground and crossing several fields which were rutted with truck and command car tracks. They swept the village, firing their stubby-nosed 75s and machine guns at the slightest hint of any movement. The Germans gave up quickly, and from the looks of them, they were in a worse shape than we were. We found out later from the prisoner interrogation that they not had any food or water in over 24 hours, and before that, they had been on light rations over several weeks. So the German soldiers basically had no supplies left. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
They didn't eat. The German soldiers didn't eat. They're out of ammunition. They're out of food.
Well, they're looking for food, and they're looking to get out of the place of the fire.
Yeah, but the ones you interrogated said they haven't eaten in a long time. They were on light rations for several weeks. They were under the assumption that they would surrender, and then they had at least have water and food. So a lot of these Germans surrendered just so they could get some water and food.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're starving. Instead, each were given a K ration and a half a cup of water. So they didn't get the meals they thought, because you guys had nothing really to give them. You gave them a half a cup of water and some of your K rations. You just didn't have the food out in a combat field, which had purified with halazone tablets. One of the prisoners relented during interrogation that they were preparing for a counterattack, and no sooner had he revealed the information than the German mortar and artillery fire began coming into our area. Following by the screaming German infantry, we quickly swung the gun around and began firing on the oncoming horde. So let me ask you something. This soldier is telling you, this German soldier is telling you that they have a big counter attack coming to you.
Hey, what?
This German soldier became a prisoner of war. He turned himself in because he had nothing to eat.
Yeah.
He thought, and he told you that a big counterattack was coming from the Germans, and it started coming.
Yeah.
But what I'm asking you is, how many of the German soldiers just put their hands up and wanted to surrender?
Well, they had enough. They didn't want to get killed. The Americans shot them anyway.
Let me ask you something. Did any of the SS ever surrender?
Yeah, what?
Did any of the SS ever surrender?
SS?
Yeah, did they ever surrender?
No, they were fanatics.
They would never do that.
Yeah.
What would an SS do to this German soldier if he was telling the Americans about the counteroffensive coming?
A German would tell an American?
You got a prisoner of war, he's a German, and he's telling the Americans that a big German counteroffensive's coming.
They wouldn't believe him. They wouldn't believe him.
If an SS heard that, what would be done to that German prisoner?
What would they do with the German prisoner?
If the SS heard the German soldier telling the Americans...
Well, they set him back behind the lines. The police would pick him up, put him in a stockade.
But you have never heard of an SS ever surrendering?
Well, I didn't see too many SSs. They were always up in Russia. Most of them were up in Russia.
But you never heard of a German paratrooper ever surrendering?
A German prisoner? Oh, yeah.
No, a German paratrooper, because that was an elite group. Did you ever hear of a German paratrooper ever?
Well, no, they're more fanatic. They're more fanatic.
They wouldn't surrender.
Well, I